I don't look very good on that one day of the year. But thank you all for coming. I'm going to spend the time today, usually I stand up here and talk about the great year that we've had in the past, and we did have a great year in 2012. We talked yesterday about earnings on our earnings call, which I'm sure many of you heard, and record first quarter results. But today, I'm going to follow on a little bit with what Doug talked about on the merger and talk about more about the future and the history and what's going to happen with the merger going forward. The deck I'm going to go through is the same one that Tom and Doug, a couple of edits, but basically the same deck that Tom and Doug did on Valentine's Day on the 14th. So you may have already seen a lot of this, you will have already seen a lot of this, but hopefully I'll do it with a little more flair than those two guys managed to accomplish. So there'll be something interesting that comes in it. But before I start, I also want to add my thanks to the union reps who are here today and those who aren't. Doug is right, that is a big part of the untold story. A number of these guys became personal friends of mine. Doug talks about saying we can't let these guys down. Boy, that was a sentiment that all of us shared, that I certainly shared. But the risks that they took to try to set a new destiny was something that really meant a lot to me, and we all feel that way. I'll add a third untold story to what Doug talked about, which actually is the American management team. Who doesn't get told this story enough. If you look at, if you were a shareholder in United, Delta, Northwest, if you own shares in those companies, the day before those airlines filed bankruptcy, you got completely wiped out in bankruptcy. If you were a creditor, you took big losses in those bankruptcies. In this case, the American management team has had, objectively, if you just look at it objectively, by far the most successful restructuring, out of a whole lot of restructurings in the airline industry, by far the most successful restructuring. If you were a shareholder in American Airlines the day before American filed bankruptcy, instead of getting wiped out like you would have happened in United, Delta, or Northwest, or any of the other airline bankruptcies that have happened, you in fact have had a recovery of well over 100%. If you're a creditor, you're going to be, at least as the stock price looks today, you're going to be paid in full. You certainly have the potential to be paid in full. So a remarkable result. The media, there was a lot of writing, we were part of it, about some of the back and forth that occurred along the way, which is some of the natural tension in the deal. But if you just take one step back from it and look objectively at where American was in November 2 years ago to where they are today, it's been a remarkable accomplishment and a remarkable journey. People don't talk about that, I think, as much as is fair to the management team, but I think it's not arguable. Clearly the most successful restructuring in the history of the airline industry. So with that, I will start on the deck. This is one of those transactions that is exciting because it really is good for everyone involved. And it's easy to go through constituent by constituent and say why this is a positive for everyone involved, with the possible exception of our competitors who are going to have to deal with this in the future and our ability to compete very effectively and win against them. First, we created a premier global carrier. I'll spend more time talking about the route network, but I think this is going to be the best and the strongest airline in the world when we finish. It enhances value for all financial stakeholders. Doug talked about the US Airways stock was the #1 performer in the S&P 500 last year, but I'll also show you a graph that I already talked about. The American stock performance, the creditors, how successful this has been for those stakeholders, and I think the future is even brighter for our financial stakeholders. It's great for consumers. This creates a third airline that can compete effectively against United and Delta. Many more opportunities for our customers, many more destinations, bigger frequent flyer program, just a fantastic deal for our consumers because we're putting two complementary networks together. This is a case where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts when you put US Airways and American together and has significant consumer benefits. We do intend to maintain service because it's two complementary networks to all of our hubs and existing destinations. And we've talked a lot, at least previewed a lot, the significant benefits for employees. Doug talked about the security, but also creating an airline that can compete on a revenue basis with United and Delta, which means we can pay our employees like United and Delta. Just a fantastic transaction, really, for everyone involved and for all the stakeholders in the new American. You already know all this, I'm sure, because it's been much written about, but when this transaction closes, an airline that would have had 2012 revenue of just under $40 billion, 72% owned by the AMR stakeholders, 28% by US Airways. We will be headquartered in Dallas, though we'll maintain a significant corporate presence here in Phoenix. The brand will be American Airlines. I think the best name and brand in American aviation. One that, like Doug, I started my civilian career, at least at American Airlines, and I not only respect the heritage and the brand and the name, I'm proud of it. I grew up in the Dallas Metroplex. I was proud to go back and work at American, my first job out of the military, and I'm excited about and feel pride in the brand, in the name, in the history, the heritage, and the opportunity to be a part of a team that works to restore it to number one in the industry. Doug will obviously be CEO, Tom, chairman, and we've talked before about the board representation, and we will have executives from both teams. I think it's also on that point, this process, I'll thank Bev, who's here, Jim is here, Mike as well, but the teams are working incredibly well together. You're going to hear from Bev and Robert later today talking about the integration management office and how that's going. But I can say from my perspective, when I'm spending much time in Dallas these days, and when I show up there, I feel like I'm just part of the team. This is not two different companies. This is people that are working together as if we're one team, and great planning work going on. I think it bodes very well for our ability to successfully integrate the two companies, hit the ground running on day one after the merger closes, get the synergies, but also integrate the companies in a seamless manner with as little disruption as possible for our customers and our employees, and the teams are just working fantastic together to get that done. When this closes, this will be the largest airline in the world. That's not really the point of this slide. What the real point is, it creates three airlines between United, Delta, and American that are similarly sized and can compete effectively against each other. It also creates three global alliances that are very similar and very competitive. This is the part of, we're taking the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, two airlines that are smaller and had a harder time competing against United and Delta. Together with the complementary nature of our networks, we can compete much more effectively with those guys. And here is the complementary network. You can see domestically that the blue, which is US Airways, dense blue network up and down the East Coast, which complements the American positions in the Midwest, with Chicago and Dallas, two really fantastic hubs, the American Miami hub, which I'll talk more about in the next slide internationally, but also JFK and LA, which are much more international feeding. But what US Airways brings to this picture is a real hub in the West in Phoenix that is a connecting hub that can connect customers across the western part of the country from everywhere in the U.S. And then a great East Coast network that if you live on the East Coast, which is still the densest and most lucrative travel region in the world, can get customers anywhere that they want to go. And this domestic foundation feeds a fantastic global network. And it's important to have a strong domestic foundation in order to feed a global network. And if you don't believe that, you need to look no further than what happened to TWA and Pan Am, airlines that were the leaders, the worldwide leaders in the airline industry 30 to 40 years ago, but were outcompeted by airlines like United, Delta, American, who had domestic foundations to feed the global network, and as a result of their ability to feed that global network, they were able to outcompete those airlines. So it's important to have that domestic foundation to feed it, which this airline will have. We'll have the best domestic network of any of the network carriers. Then this feeds the global network. If you look at Europe, this is an area where we'll be neck and neck with United and Delta, so sort of all tied in our size to Europe. And what surprises some people is, on this chart, is that US Airways serves almost twice as many destinations in Europe as does American. American has a really strong presence in some of the most important business markets like New York and London Heathrow that US Airways isn't in. But the US Airways network complements the American network. And the reason for that is because New York, where American has a lot of its international flying, is a great point-to-point market. So local travelers flying between New York in Europe or New York or any other destination. But New York, Heathrow is one of the best examples, probably the most lucrative market in the world, where American has a very strong presence. But JFK is not a 500 flight a day connecting hub, so it can't feed customers from the entire interior of the continental US. Philadelphia is very complementary to JFK. It can feed customers from 50 to 60 destinations across the entire US. I often get the question, what's going to happen between JFK and Philadelphia? They're 110 miles apart, and aren't those two too close together? And the reality is, as I've just described, they serve two completely different markets, and they're complementary to each other. JFK is a market that is mostly about serving people going to and from New York. Philadelphia is a hub that's about serving customers going to and from Philadelphia, but also about funneling customers from the 60 or so destinations in the interior of the United States onto Europe. And it's the reason that US Airways can successfully serve secondary destinations in Europe, because we can funnel customers from the 60 or so destinations. Again, this is part of the complementary network. US Airways strong in some of these secondary cities, American strong in these really big business markets, where the two complement each other and work well together. In Latin America, US Airways adds a strong presence in Mexico and the Caribbean to what is already a strong presence for America in those markets, and an American network that is the best Latin American network in the world, with great service not only to Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central America, but you can see the fantastic network to South America and huge presence in Brazil, one of the important growing economies of the world. And across the Pacific, it's the one area that this network is behind where United and Delta are. But the fantastic domestic foundation that we have and the strong presence we have in Europe and Latin America, which will give us a strong presence with corporate accounts, gives us the ability to grow across the Pacific, both organically and through partnerships, and it's the area where we can expand and have opportunity to grow in the future. So combined, just a fantastic network. I think the best network of any airline in the world when we finish this. For a little more on the network, if you look at where we are today, neither US Airways nor American is very strong in any of the regions of the country, but you put the two of us together, and we're number one again on the East Coast, the largest and most lucrative travel region in the world, number one in the Midwest. We're still number 3 in the West Coast, that partly relates to the Pacific, but a very close number 3, and in a very strong position there, and with opportunity to catch up. Now, our goal is not to be number 1 in each region to pursue market share for market share's sake. Our goal is to be profitable and to be successful, but this is a network that if you made the same graph for any other airline, this one is going to come out on top, and something that we're excited about, and where some of the revenue synergies come from because of our strong presence throughout the United States. We will also make One World a much stronger alliance. One World will be an alliance with positions in some of the largest travel markets in the world. You look here, London, Tokyo, New York, Hong Kong, the biggest and most important and lucrative business travel destinations. You also look on the right, and you can see that the share of U.S. to the world becomes much more balanced. One World becomes much more competitive, with Star in particular after this merger is done. One of the things I think is a little known and a little appreciated is that British Airways, the first real alliance code share that was done internationally was British Airways with US Airways. Now, while it didn't work out for some other reasons, the fundamental economic rationale and the network rationale makes sense today, and putting these two airlines together just strengthens One World and really vaults One World to competitiveness and the ability to compete and win against Star and SkyTeam. We will also have the best loyalty program in the world. That's something that American is rightfully proud of, and that their customers love. American, under Bob Crandall, launched the loyalty programs and has always been at the forefront in the loyalty programs. I've had the good fortune to spend time in Dallas, actually now learning even more details of some of the stuff that I didn't know before. Just every time I spend time with that group, I continue to be impressed. They have always been in the lead on loyalty programs and remain in the lead, and this is something that is exciting for our members to be a part of that fantastic program. Also exciting for the members of Advantage today to have the larger network all in the new destinations, all the dense travel up and down the East Coast. So again, complementary putting the two together. We will also have when we finish our aircraft orders, one of the most modern and fuel-efficient fleets in the industry. And you can see a diverse fleet between narrow bodies, wide body, and regionals of just over 1,500 aircraft, and a remarkable number of aircraft, and an airline that can compete well against everyone. This also, one of the things Doug talked about it, I've talked about it, that's most exciting about this is the significant benefit for employees. And just the fact that they're here today. If you were at a media day, I think at any other airline, or even at US Airways in the past, you would have never seen two tables in the room with our union representatives. And that's indicative of how good this transaction is going to be for the employees. It's a new precedent for labor management relations, one that we're committed to sustaining. We won't always agree. There'll be places where we have disagreements, but the reality is 95% of the time we can be aligned and we can be partners, and we should work together as partners. The history in our industry has not been to work together as partners. It's been much more adversarial. This is a new day, a new foundation, a new start, and an ability to work jointly together on the vast majority of issues. And we are very much looking forward to that and creating a new world, a new opportunity. It's also exciting for the employees. It's not just about union relations, but the average employees who fly on US Airways or American and ask the pilots, flight attendants, ask the gate agents what they think. They're excited about the future. And, the most important thing we have for our product in this business is customer service and how employees treat the customer. There's nothing that can make it. There's going to be times when there's weather or an FAA delay, and those things happen in the industry. And there's nothing that can make that situation better than having a flight attendant who's a fantastic flight attendant who smiles and makes you feel welcome and makes you feel better. And having people that are excited about the future is the best way to do that. And so, this really is an airline that I think, because of this isn't just important for the obvious reasons, but it's also important financially because this will cause this airline, the new American Airlines, to deliver the best customer service in the industry. We also are excited that our labor integration will be much smoother than has happened at other airlines, and that it happened at US Airways, and it's happening at United. For all intents and purposes, we still have work to do, but the process is laid out, and it's pretty clear what's going to happen to integrate and get a smooth integration of the employees, and it creates fantastic career opportunities for everyone at the world's biggest and best airline. Labor, obviously strong murder support. I won't read these, I'm sure you can't read them from there, but you've seen all the quotes from the labor leaders and the support that this transaction has. Again, one of the things that makes it exciting. Also fantastic for our stakeholders, a little over $1 billion of synergies, $900 million from the network. This is about having an airline that you put, again, these two complementary airlines together. We can go back and we can win the corporate business. We can win some more of those elite customers away from United and Delta. Cost synergies, we've talked about before. We're happy to answer more questions today of about $550 million. You net out $400 million of labor costs. So when you put the two airlines together, one, the deals that we cut with the labor unions are richer than the standalone American deals are going to be. That's okay because the airline has all of these synergies, and it's appropriate to share those synergies with the labor groups. But you put the two airlines together, and that's about a negative $400 million for a total of over $1 billion of synergies. Now, we hope that's conservative and that we outperform this. If you look at Delta and Northwest and US Airways America West, our synergies that we're forecasting at just over $1 billion are certainly conservative compared to what's happened in the past, but we'd rather underpromise and hopefully overdeliver. And the great work that's going on through the Integration Management Office has got us well on a road to achieving and hopefully exceeding these synergies. Talking about stakeholders, here's the graph that I previewed before, and if you look at this, just very, very good for all the financial stakeholders. In the middle of the graph, US Airways stock from the time American filed bankruptcy to today, up almost 300%. As Doug said, the number one in the Fortune 500. If you look at what happened to the creditors for American, up almost 500% from the day after they filed bankruptcy. So just an incredible recovery. One of the best investments anyone could have made was buying the unsecured debt in America after the filing. you would have made almost 500%, and at least as of today, it looks like those notes will get paid at 100 cents on the dollar. And you look at the American Airlines stock price, which is up 140% from the time America filed bankruptcy. Again, that third untold story that I don't think American management team gets enough credit for. There's never been something like this that's happened in an airline bankruptcy. This has been a success story all around for everyone involved in the process. Bev and Robert are going to talk more about this later today, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But we've got a great team of people working together on the integration of the airline, the transition committee that Doug and Tom head up, that Bev and I also sit on. But where the real work is happening and the rubber's meeting the road is here at the Integration Management Office, which Bev and Robert are leading, and just fantastic work going on. And they'll talk to you more about that later today. We also hope and still expect to close this in the third quarter of next year. A lot has happened recently to move this process forward with a number of filings in the last week. That's why I think it's going to be hard for us to make new news today after filing about 600 pages of documents a week or two ago. But the process is moving along very, very effectively. Probably the long pole in the tent is getting the HSR, the antitrust approval. We are working with the Department of Justice on that. We also need to get approval from US Airways shareholders. It's also important to note that this doesn't have financing conditions attached to it. It's pretty remarkable, actually. Airlines, America with a good, strong cash position, US Airways, our highest first quarter unrestricted cash balance in history that we announced in our earnings recently. But able to go through this merger without financing conditions, actually out in the market raising capital both at American and US Airways, at 4%. Who would have thought a few years ago airlines would be able to go off and do WATC transactions and raise capital at 4%? Pretty amazing. But we do expect to have all this done and close sometime in the third quarter of 2013. So in summary, this has been a fantastic year, and this is a fantastic transaction for everyone, really all the constituents involved. First, the shareholders, I just talked about that, and the creditors of American, both at American and in US Airways. For the employees, this really is a new day. For management, it's a new day. It's a new opportunity to create a new dynamic for employee union management relations. For customers, it's great. We're going to have the best network in the world, the best frequent flyer program in the world, and things just get better for our best customers at both American and at US Airways. And for the communities we serve, all of our hubs are going to stay intact, and it creates opportunities to add more service in places because we have just a stronger base and a stronger foundation to offer that service from. So with that, I think we're taking questions later today. We are excited about the merger, the opportunity. Obviously, we spent a lot of time getting here and really look forward to the future and creating the biggest, not only the biggest, but the best airline in the world, and going out and competing and winning against Delta, United, Southwest, and everyone else. Thank you.